I'm Rachael Colley and I'm a jeweller, a metal worker, creating cutlery or flatware and tableware and also sculpture as well. And I really enjoy working with natural materials a lot of the time. I'm really inspired by food and also with by nature as well, and enjoying going out on walks to gather a range of materials to work with, and collecting food waste as well. That's another thing that I obviously have problems with hoarding. You can't throw things away, and I use these as a way to try and instigate my design process, but often they remain in it, and I aim to transform those materials to add a preciousness and a value through the making process and present them as something that's precious and that's considered and valuable. This was an opportunity for me to explore communicating in a different way, and in a way that perhaps is not something that I would naturally go to. I find it sometimes I get quite a lot of anxiety with the constant online presence of today. I sometimes have to shut down from going on social media, for example. It's nice to have to stop the emails at certain points. So to be able to have the opportunity and the chance to work with within a digital realm in a way that I felt more comfortable with, and that was combining some things and processes that are more comfortable for me, was a really exciting and important chance and opportunity, so that I could develop things that I think could be valuable, and perhaps could bring more people into feeling comfortable in a digital context and in that realm, in a way that it's perhaps a challenge for some people. I'm neurodivergent, so I have autism, and I don't know whether that's got something to do with it, but I think a lot through making and through materials, and the digital realm can sometimes feel quite alien because it's kind of ephemeral and nebulous in a way that I find tricky to comprehend and understand. Whereas physical things and the tactility of those in particular, and the relationship they have to the body, and how they kind of work for me physically to help to calm me down and to keep me grounded, I find is really important in my life. I'm quite sensitive to fabrics and things that I wear against my skin. And I think that's why I'm also quite fascinated with jewellery, and always have been, because it's artwork that is on the body. And that's just a brilliant site for me to be able to engage and test with things. So the idea of this and how it sort of works when it pushes past your face or through your hair, and how it works with the light as well. This has been a kind of, I suppose with your practice, you're always going through similar ideas, and they come back and they come in again. And this one has come back in from that ambiguous implements project back into the starting points for how I'm thinking about the hiCraft project. I think maybe the ASD gives me a heightened sensory perception. I don't know if that's the case for most people, or if I'm a little bit more sensitive than some others, but I love going and smelling things. This one smells a little bit odd. This is a material composite I've developed that's with horse chestnut husks, and it's called conker cork. So I've been trying to develop things that have a sensory element that is more than just the tactile nature of it, the smell. And I suppose what really interested me when we had our initial talks about hiCraft, and was especially what Sean said about sensors and sensing, and that kind of really got stuck with me, I think, and I really thought, oh, actually there's such a fantastic opportunity within this digital realm to heighten your senses and to have possibly a deeper relationship with nature through them. I was really taken with some of the ones that are more nebulous for me, that I would find very difficult to try to work through. And I suppose it relates to a lot of my practice, because how you can preserve things that are organic, the food waste or the natural organic materials are by drying them. So I became very interested in the moisture sensors, the galvanic sensor that relates to body moisture, and also soil moisture sensors. And that's something that I suppose I'm really keen to develop a deeper sense, and almost it gives you almost like a superpower. Like animals have a heightened sense of visual communication through being able to see in UV or whatever it is. And I feel like that's almost what this project has given me. It's a fantastic opportunity to develop my sensory experience through this digital world. What I'm seeking is a connection with my partner. So he died in a car crash that wasn't his fault. And what I wanted to do was to try and connect with him again. And I think it's a very difficult thing to try to do, and to try to find. I suppose the way that I feel he can live on is by scattering his ashes, and that they will kind of re-enter the world and begin a new life cycle. I wanted to try and make that connection with nature, because that's where I feel that life continues, and life cycles within nature are just relentless, quite frankly. They just keep on coming, no matter what happens in life. It seems like nature will always find a way, and that's what I wanted to find a closer connection with. So my idea was to have two correlating pods, the design of which is developed from natural materials that I've been going out and looking at and collecting in my local environment, and also food, because I can't seem to not do stuff about food. So that's where the inspiration has come from for these two pods that connect together to each other. Both of them sense moisture levels. One of them senses it on my body, and the other one senses it in the ground, in soil, in the natural environment. And the idea is that when the levels correlate in certain conditions, then they have a connection, and there is a response, and there is an acknowledgement of that connection to each other. And the way that I've found I can become grounded is to do exercise. So I've experienced trauma, and in the research, and what I've found through my own personal experience, is that exercise is really important, because it can help you to overcome that fight or flight response that you have in your body, and it helps you to think, whether you have or not, that you've fought or flown, what it is that's causing you trauma, and that trauma is in my past. And I suppose what happens with the exercise is it grounds you in your body, and it helps you to realise that you're in the present, and that the trauma has passed, I suppose. I find it, the trauma, I suppose, is always on the periphery of your vision. That's how I would describe it. It's always there, but I try very hard to just keep going through each day, and I'm always like, just get through the day. You can do it. And I think what this this project has given me is a tool to really try and focus in on it in a safe environment, in a way that's positive, I think, and that enables me to try to make that connection, make space to make time to find that connection again. I suppose I have an autoimmune disease called systemic sclerosis, and that does affect my moisture levels in a funny way. So in a sense that's interesting for me too, that it helps me to think about my body. And through also experiential anatomy and that moving into movement and into somatics has become quite an important practice for me. So to do that as a form of exercise, and then also into movement with these objects that are kind of just subtle movements around the body, and trying to think about how I'm feeling. Am I feeling okay? In that sense, physically as well as mentally. That's what this project has given me the space to do. You're communicating through different means, and it's not necessarily through language, but and it does often feel like a trying process to see whether you can make a connection, and I feel like so often it falls flat, which is why you end up with so many different tests and samples and methods of making. But when it does work and you can find a connection, it's quite amazing, it's quite rare. But yeah, I feel that that trying is the important part, isn't it? That you are trying to find the time and space to remember and to check in with yourself to make sure that how you're feeling, and that you're feeling well, that you're feeling grounded in the time that you're in, and recognising that rather than wishing for something from the past or thinking too much about what will happen in the future. So these pieces and the designs have come through looking at natural objects, especially pods and seeds. That idea of generating new life I find has been really inspirational in looking at this in terms of the form. Like I say, these are inserts of biodegradable materials and components, some of which in this case are just testing as well. So these parts are trying to look at combining found materials on my walks, so the feathers in different ways, to give a sensory component to the experience if it's inserted into the form, what it feels like against the body. The idea is that one of these pieces will go outside. This is the piece that will go out into the environment, and it has a soil moisture sensor, and this will be inserted into the ground to take a reading from different sites around where I live, but also mainly the site where Simon is, to gather the information and make a connection with the piece that's the same form that correlates with my body. I've been experimenting with foods that I've saved that Simon was supposed to eat, that I still saved that are in the cupboard, but also foods that I've been eating, so things that are still nourishing my body that I think he would know that I would be eating, such as potatoes. We always used to have a bit of a joke about jacket potatoes, and this does look a bit like a jacket potato now I look at it. So this piece will have a component where it measures my own moisture levels. This is the Arduino component for that, and these are galvanic moisture sensors, so they sense the moisture in your body, and I'll put those on my fingers. And I think I see this as happening at a particular time. After I've done my exercise routine, I tend to take a moment to do some breathing on the floor and lying down. So the idea is that this doesn't actually have a kind of jewellery connection or function, but I would be lying down to have this in close proximity to my body. but I do see it as maybe a piece that would fit more closely up here, because I think that links to my breathing and to my sensing of my throat and of my body. It's also quite a close and intimate space in the body, and it's also where I think you can kind of get sweats accumulating in this area, so it would mean that I would have my hand near to the piece and it would be in connection with my body in that way. So this is where I kind of see it being. The way that it will tell me whether the two pieces are connecting and the levels of moisture are in a symbiosis and have a correlation will be through a kind of soft vibration that will extend out. And these kind of tentacles in the wire will be coming out of the piece in a certain area, which could come up sort of onto the head or down onto this part of the body, and you will get that kind of shuddering sense that there is a connection. So I feel like it's almost a sensitive sense of a connection that is akin to either goosebumps or shivering, or something that is a bit more obscure or subtle in that way. Something that feels like it's more connected with your body and something that your body would naturally do, maybe in a situation where you felt like there had been a connection that was slightly odd or uncanny in a way. And that was what I was trying to pick up. So these sort of thin stainless steel wires are surgical grade as well, which is kind of interesting. So they could be in you, but they are welded on, so they can kind of move with the shiver. And I want them to be sort of intrusive and but not too much, not too obvious. Again, this is something I think I need to develop a lot more, and it would be good to test it to see how it actually does feel, especially when you talk about grounding, and that could be, a lot of the time it comes through your body and down into your feet, and how you could look and picking up and trying to focus in on certain areas of the body that might work better to achieve that. Yeah.